Hi all, welcome to this new episode of my podcast, A Digital Tomorrow. Today, I have the huge pleasure of being joined by Tram Anh Nguyen. Welcome, Tram Anh, to my show.
Thanks a lot, Oriol. It's a pleasure to be with you, and thanks for having me.
No, the pleasure is mine. For those of you who might not know Tram Anh yet, even though she's a very influential person in the fintech area, well, I can tell you that Tram Anh co-founded CFTE, a global platform for education in fintech and the future of financial services. She's also the board member of the ACT, EDHEC, entrepreneurship expert at Said Business School, University of Oxford, fellow at Imperial College, top 10 women transforming tech, top 22 key opinion leader in fintech. She has also co-authored the world's largest FinTech Job Report, and well, she holds like many more titles. She's also an Analytica top 100 fintech influencer, if I'm not mistaken. So as you can see, I mean, it's a very amazing biography. And Tram Anh started as well in the corporate and entrepreneurial world before joining this fintech world. She used to work in Standard Chartered in New York, UBS Wealth Management. So as you can see, Tram Anh's journey is very interesting because she transitioned from traditional finance to fintech, and not just to fintech in general, but also to educating in fintech. Just as a side note, before speaking with Tram Anh, I wanted to say that I met Tram Anh a while ago because I was invited to teach CFT's course on CBDCs, on central bank digital currencies. So that's why I became much more acquainted with what Tram Anh is doing, which I think is fascinating. And also, as a final note, normally whenever I invite people to my podcast, we tend to talk about more tech-related things or finance-related. But today we are going to talk about fintech, of course, but at the same time we're going to have like a different angle, a different approach to that. We are going to focus much more on how to educate on fintech, on what the fintech labor market looks like, which is something very, very interesting for many of you, I'm sure, dear listeners. So without further ado, once again, welcome, Tram Anh.
Thanks a lot, Oriol, and it's a real pleasure to have you part of as a CFT. We call that experts and teaching to the community, and I'm very pleased to be here. And thanks a lot for welcoming me.
No, the pleasure is absolutely mine. And I wanted to start, of course, asking you about your personal journey. As I said before, you transitioned from traditional finance to fintech. What made you decide to make that transition, and especially to transition to fintech education? Like, what drove you to do that?
Yes, no, thanks a lot. So yes, the idea behind my journey into fintech education is that because I was myself, into the traditional world, with having myself, working for a large organization in the traditional finance world. And the idea is very much because I saw that a lot of people today, the world is very moving into this tech-driven finance. And technology is really making a huge impact into the world of finance. But the reality is that, including myself, not a lot of people understand it. And that's why it drove me, is by helping institution and organization, but not only, or also people at the same time from everywhere around the world, to help them to adapt to this world of tech-driven finance by offering financial education, scholarship, mentorship, individuals in the fintech industry through program to get them upskilled into this new world of finance. That was very much with this mission of educating people in fintech and to equip today anyone, professionals, but also students, but also people from totally different background to get the right skills, the right knowledge for them to thrive in this new world of finance.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for sharing, and I think that's a very good purpose. But maybe I should start from the beginning, because I said before that you co-founded CFTE, and I said that I am teaching there as well. But could you please share with our listeners what CFTE actually is, what you offer, and what makes you different from other maybe education providers in the market?
Yes. So basically, CFT is the Center for Finance, Technology, and Entrepreneurship. It's an educational platform for anyone who wants today to learn about this new world of fintech. And why we're doing this is that because today the world of finance is really transforming, and we saw that there was a huge knowledge gap, because things are moving so fast. But if you were talking to anyone today that has been into the industry in finance, the majority of them don't know. They don't know about what's happening in blockchain, APIs, cloud computing. And that was what triggered us to really build up that platform to deliver education to anyone, we are based in the UK, but if you were, for example, in Asia, for example, in Singapore or Vietnam or Malaysia or India or Africa or everywhere around the world, including in the UK, but you don't have anywhere to learn about this new world and this content. And today what we're doing is creating this huge platform with industry experts, I spend a lot of time actually collaborating with governments, policymakers, industry experts, entrepreneurs, exec and academia, to really think of initiative in pushing financial education for the industry. So I think that what is missing in the industry is that there are not education for adults. There's nowhere in the world where you have a platform, either that you are doing your job, but nowhere in the world where you can still work, but at the same time pursue this idea of lifelong learning, continuous education as the world is moving fast, and have industry experts to teach about anything that is happening globally. So you can be in the UK and you want to know a lot more about what's happening, let's say, in Singapore, Hong Kong, Abu Dhabi, where we are quite strongly, UK, France, and you want to know what's happening in those areas, which is fintech, AI, blockchain. You want to know, but how do you know that? Which is all taught by industry experts, so you are very relevant. And that is for me very important. That's why, for us, I'm passionate about creating a positive impact with financial education, is by providing very good program for anyone today along their job to learn and to be part of a huge ecosystem of professionals where they can share much more on a daily basis about what's happening. So this is what we do, and we've been doing quite a lot in terms of building wide-scale training project alongside with governments, let's say in Singapore, where we, for example, are one of the first and only foreign entities in education to provide education in fintech for the whole of the workforce in Singapore. Same with the work that we have done, for example, with some of the government in Abu Dhabi, with ADGM, for example, where we are training the whole of the government. And now with our work in digital transformation, how do we make sure that the whole of the region are being skilled up in a lot of different technologies? I can mention also the work that we have done with Hong Kong, with Cyberport, or recently we are building also academy for government in Luxembourg, where we have also launched academy so that the whole of the Luxembourg can be trained in fintech and entrepreneurship. And lately, we have partnered with the training arm of the Central Bank of Hungary to train them first in AI, and then the partnership went so well that today we are launching programs in payments, in digital finance, to train the whole of the region. So that is one thing that we do, building academies for countries, for organizations, and also to provide an ecosystem for our alumni, professionals alumni. We have done today 100,000 professionals coming from 100 countries, and for them to find opportunities. So CFT is all about also creating this a network and community of alumni who can engage on a daily basis for them to be first continuous to learn and keep updated about what's happening in this fintech industry, but also for them to network so that hopefully, we'd love to have great entrepreneurs that have started at CFT and perhaps, be a successful entrepreneurs in the next few years.
Well, I mean, thank you for sharing. It's remarkable indeed. And I was going to ask you, like, if you think that there is worldwide a lack of offering fintech courses, but maybe I should rephrase that because, well, you answered that before. So maybe I should say, why do you think there is such a gap, generally speaking, globally speaking, of offer of fintech courses? Like when you look at universities, many of them, I know they are starting to offer fintech courses, but still, like overall, worldwide, compared to the amount of universities like teaching finance or tech, you don't see like many of them teaching things as important as what you said before, artificial intelligence, blockchain. And to me, that's a huge gap, that there is. So why do you think that gap is still there?
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. When I realized, we set it up CFT 5 years ago, there were nowhere you could find fintech education at university. Mm-hmm. That's why we saw that gap. And today they start to have, but the reality is that it takes a lot of time to create for a university a program. What you've learned at university sometimes is things that have been set up, long time back, and to build a curriculum that is very connected to the industry, it takes quite a lot of time. So for us, we are bringing that gap where we can build a curriculum that are really, really relevant to the work environment, because we spend a lot of time ourselves as we are industry. Also, I'm coming from the industry. My background is not in education, but I know the world of finance very, very well, and the world of fintech very well, because I connect with that world on a daily basis. I talk to all the CEOs of the fintech companies. My world is also to talk with the government, the regulators, the central banks, the whole ecosystem on a daily basis. So I know. And of course, looking for excellent experts that are constantly, updating themselves as well. That's why you are part of our network of teachers and experts, because it's very important for us that we create a learning program that are really close to the industry. It's taught by the industry for the industry. We speak the same language, and this is what I see, that the university are perhaps, for me, too academics and not led by the industry. And so I won't say that the university are not providing good foundational knowledge about finance, which is very needed. But what we complement is that we are providing more industry knowledge. And this is what we are trying to solve. And that globally, not only focusing on what's happening in the UK, or a certain part of the world, but very much my world is to gather industry experts from all around the world at the same time, and it's challenging to make sure that we can gather as an updated landscape of what's happening not only in the US, but also in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, in India, by doing a lot of different programs and different ways of learning. Adults' education is really different. When you want to teach something for adults and professionals, very different when you teach students at university, very, very different. So we are, I think, providing that gap.
No, I fully agree with you. I mean, despite having a PhD as well, I think that, sometimes universities can be too academic, and which, it makes sense. Universities need to be academic, but at the same time, there is another kind of knowledge, that you cannot always teach through like the most academic methods, such as, for example, peer-reviewed journal articles, which are amazing. I know those are necessary, but at the same time, sometimes you need more of that industry knowledge that you just mentioned. And related to that, I wanted to talk a bit about your FinTech Job Report, because as I said before, we normally don't cover that in my podcast, but I feel like, well, many of my listeners can be interested in that part, because many people right now want to like either getting new jobs or directly like tapping into the FinTech industry, by leaving the traditional financial sector or legal sector and start like tapping into FinTech. So this job report is an amazing work actually, and well, we will not be able to cover it all like in 20-ish minutes, but still I would like to get some ideas from you, such as, well, for example, maybe I should start like from the very beginning. This CFTE FinTech Job Report 2021, which was released at the Singapore FinTech Festival in November, analyzed jobs found in 225 of the largest FinTech firms, revealing a huge need for talent across FinTech. So could you please summarize maybe what were like the main few, like 3, 4, 5 findings of your report?
Yes, no, thanks a lot, Oriol. Yes, it's an intensive, work. We spend months and months with our team to analyze all the new jobs that the FinTech industry offered the past few years. And it's a phenomenal work that we have done. Why we did that is that because FinTech industry is really growing in a big way. And we can talk more later, but it's because it came from the need of our alumni, knowing, okay, I have a job, very traditional, let's say in compliance, and I want to basically know what are the skills, what is the competencies that is needed for me to get into perhaps the FinTech industry, or what are those jobs that are being created in the FinTech industry. And so we've done this big analysis by looking at the industry itself, by tapping and looking into the 225 largest unicorns around the world. And we found 40,000 jobs that was offered by the 225 largest FinTech companies in the world. The job that most people don't know, and the findings were really interesting. I'll share with you perhaps one example to see how complex it is. But if FinTech was a city, it would be the third employer after New York and London. So I'll tell you more. Do you know how many the FinTech industry employs? How many people? I'll ask you a question, Oriol. Do you know how many employees the FinTech industry?
No, I'm not sure. I mean, I know the amount is growing, but I don't know the exact figure, to be honest.
Yes. So New York employs 450,000 employees in finance. Mm-hmm. London, 400,000 in London, in where I am here in Canary Wharf. You have 400,000 employees working in finance. Today, the FinTech industry employs around 300,000. So it's the third largest city in the world. So it's a huge industry. If you compare, compared to an industry that has been into for years and years and years, and it took a very short period of time to build employee working in the FinTech industry. There's 300,000. So there's 40,000 new jobs. And the idea behind this study is that what are the skills needed for you to get into those 40,000 jobs? So we've done a huge amount of work by putting category into those jobs and what are the skills needed. So the job in FinTech can be put in category of 14 job families. 80% of the job in FinTech are very similar to tech companies. And that's why we call the report Technology is Eating Finance. We have, so basically to tell you what are the skills needed, we did a huge exercise by analyzing those 40,000 jobs. And I can, spend a lot of time, but I'll invite all our, audience to go and check that it's a report that we are providing for free, and to the whole industry for you to understand what are the skills needed. And what is interesting by looking at the skills needed for you to get into a FinTech startup today, it's all about tech skills. I thought it would be fin, but it's more tech than fin, which means that if you don't understand technology today, it's impossible for you to get a job in fintech. And more than that, we can, in the next few years, and my view is that it's going to go more and more deeper. You can't be in technology, you can't be working in finance, and I include that finance, banks, insurance, etc., and not understanding tech. So that's why we call our report "Technology is Eating Finance," is that because today is very, very strong, and it will increase more and more as the knowledge will be much bigger, and there will be a huge gap. So that is the conclusion of the report, is that if you don't understand technology, it's impossible for you to move into this new world of finance. And that's why I think the fintech is leading this transformation of finance, and this will have a huge impact for jobs in the whole industry. We can talk more. I'm sure you have other questions to ask me, but that was in summary the report in a nutshell. But there's so much more I would love to share.
No, of course. I mean, it's been a great summary. Actually, I must say that the title, "Technology is Eating Finance," caught my eye, because it's what you said. You tend to think that perhaps fin is like dominating over tech, or at least it's like 50-50. But this 80-20% that you mentioned, it caught my eye as well when I was checking your report. But I guess that when you said that 80% of the jobs are tech related, it doesn't mean that necessarily those people need to have like a background in engineering. I guess that in some cases, it might be simply that they may come from finance, but they need to understand the technology. By, for example, doing a course on blockchain, artificial intelligence. I guess that not in every case they need to come from an engineering background.
Yes. You're totally right. So to tell you a little bit more, we've conducted a taxonomy of the jobs in fintech, which nowhere else have done it. And we spend a lot of time at analyzing the roles into 14 job families, which can be further classified into 3 distinct categories. So exactly as you said, there are generic roles found in most organizations in any industry, human resources, legal, etc. There's technology, which is technical and non-technical roles, most commonly found in tech companies, engineering, marketing, communication, but those are huge roles that are really distinct. So I invite you to go and check. And then after that, you have finance role, typical found in traditional finance and institution, which is risk and compliance and core business, business finance, etc. But what is really striking by looking at those categories of the job that didn't even exist a couple of years ago is very tech driven. So it's that the world of tech is really entering the world of finance in a big way, and all the new jobs that are being created are all tech. Finance is already there. So if you are coming from the traditional background and you want to move into the fintech, where you should upskill yourself is very much understanding tech, building up your skills in the tech. We can discuss more, I think, about the skills, but that was really much the answers of the report.
No, I mean, I think it makes perfect sense. I mean, a few years ago, perhaps it was like enough to know about accountancy or stock markets, to work in finance. But it feels like right now you need more than that, because the new finance tends to go through different channels as well. Incumbents, traditional banks are still there. They will remain there. But we are starting to see many more new players, fintech unicorns, as you said before, huge payment apps like the ones we see, for example, in China and in other many countries. So that's, I guess, why it makes this tech part much more important right now. And there is one more aspect that I wanted to talk as well, to analyze, and it's related to this idea of defining the roles. Something that I started to see a while ago, and I think that your report also mentions that, is that jobs at fintechs, they tend to be maybe not as well defined as they are in large, for example, banks or other companies. I don't mean by that fintechs do not define the roles. I mean, of course, that they hire like people for HR, for legal, for accountancy. I mean, they do, of course, and I don't mean that they don't, but this is an impression that I had myself as well. When you apply for a job in a bank, everything is very like, it's all very, very strict in the sense that you know exactly what role you're applying for. There is a very clear hierarchy. You know exactly who you will be reporting to. You know what skills you need. Whereas when it comes to the world of fintech, I know that in some companies or cases this is very well defined, but I feel like it's not that well defined. I mean, do you agree with that? Does your report conclude that as well?
Yes, you're totally right. It's exactly the conclusion of the report. It's not well defined, but this is what we've done. So we've done a big analysis about the different fintech jobs that fall into the category: generic, job found in most organizations; technology, job found in tech companies; and finance, the job found in financial services. Then for each of the 4 job families, we included categories. So actually we are setting up, all the framework for putting that, because a couple of years ago, there were none. You would just apply, and you would be put in a position, and then you will just skill up. But today, because the fintech unicorns are much bigger, they're starting to have a more structured way if you are, for example, coming from an engineering background, where what kind of position you could apply, and it's much more structured than before. And that's how we were able to put this family job, this family roadmap, and all of this in place, by now having much more data and much more information about what are the roles available in the fintech. It was not possible a couple of years ago. Some of the fintech companies didn't even have an HR department, because it was so unstructured. Nobody would thought about. So now it's much more structured. So what we do is that on a daily basis, we go and contact unicorn and ask, okay, what are the jobs that you are being created? What do you need in terms of skills, competencies? And we craft those job board. What I want to help perhaps for the audience to understand, of course, it's about having a role and a structure about the role, and compared to the finance industry. But today, I think what is needed is having the right skills. What I want to say that is that today, while tech skills are more important than fin skills in fintech, in its broad sense, they are not sufficient and themselves. I think hard skills like programming or data science might be the first things that come to mind when thinking about fintech. But I think today there are many other requirements depending on the job roles. And what is very concrete when I talk to all the CEOs of fintech companies, and I spend a lot of time with them, what they say, Chairman, is not about necessarily the hard skills. Of course, the hard skills we can provide as the job are evolving in the company. But what is important today, if you were, contemplating to get into a fintech, it's about having the soft skills. Listening skills across, it's about all these collaboration skills. It's about having, this customer centricity, real-time interaction, product innovation. But it's much more than that. It's about having those collaboration, interpersonal skills, because all those skills are very important to get as we are moving into this collaboration world. And more than the soft skills is the mindset, being very proactive, learner mindset, curiosity mindset, adaptability. Those are the skills that a lot of people are looking. And hard skills I mentioned: programming, data analytics, data visualization, database operation. All of this it's important to get. That's why we are solving that problem. And on top of all these skills that you need to build up, is the industry knowledge: fintech, finance, accounting, underwriting. It's about the hard skills, it's about the mindset, and it's about the soft skills. And the last skills that perhaps that is the most important today is the adaptability and being an entrepreneur. I know that is not easy to get, because I know that when you are in traditional finance, you never have been asked to build anything or to create something on your own. Today, as the finance world is shifting, is building, the most important, I guess, skills that anyone should have is this ability to think like an entrepreneur. And that is, for me, the most important skills to get today.
No, actually, I agree. When you said before that the tech part was more important now than the fin part, I was actually going to ask you about that, about what other skills are necessary, because I feel like it is exactly what you said. When you are working, for example, for a very big bank, an incumbent, you are like a tiny part in a huge machinery. So it is true that you need, of course, skills, but generally speaking, you just did like maybe like a small part, let's say, of the accountancy of that bank. No? So as long as you, let's say, got along well with your immediate colleagues and you did well your job, your numbers, I mean, you are fine, no, in that company. But when it comes to fintech, it's a whole different world, especially when it comes to smaller fintechs. But I can vouch for that myself because I've been involved in the startup and fintech area as an employee for a few years, and I can vouch for that by saying that you need a completely different mindset. It's not just enough to be just one more part of that machinery. It's not just enough to just get by doing what you're asked to do. No, you need to be proactive, because sometimes in these smaller companies, aside from your role, what your bosses expect from you is to bring new ideas to the table, no? Which is very different from much bigger companies. So that's why I think that you made like a great summary of what kind of mindset and soft skills. And I admit that this is not always easy for everyone. Some people perhaps are very comfortable or adapted to this idea of traditional finance, where they where they don't need to be an entrepreneur, like to keep their jobs. And now ask them now to change their mindset is something that, of course, it's challenging, but at the same time, I think that our current times require that.
Yes, no, you're so right, Oriol. You know, we're spending a lot of time talking to people who have been into traditional world for for many years, or whole their career, and what they see is that this new world, which is fascinating, of digital finance is coming, and they're really scared to adapt to this new world. And how can they make sure that, you know, they can jump? And so that's why we spend a lot of time. We developed a program, perhaps I'll mention, but we've developed a program which is called Entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And Entrepreneurship is very much with the idea how to think like an entrepreneur. And so we work closely with some of the larger startups, like last year in 2021, we developed a program with Uber. So Uber entering the world of finance. And we've had a cohort of, I can't remember, 100, but people from very high level. We even have as an example, I won't say, but a chairman of a bank. And he called me after very short, the first few days, he said, my God, what is a Slack? What is, you know, all these new, you know, tools that require me to collaborate, you know, and it was really difficult for him. He never done any research. And he said to me, can I ask my secretary to do my research, you know? And so, yes, I think it's for me, more than the hard skills, more than, you know, all this knowledge that, of course, you need to have. But today, if there was one message I would like to share, is about, please, you know, there's lots of different ways now to work. And those tools, you need to know how to use those tools, because those are the new ways of working, the new ways to think, to build. And this is what we teach by having, you know, those cohort. First, to think like an entrepreneur, to think like a startup, what is the business model, how to work collaboratively, etc., but how to use those tools. And all of this has to be done in a structured way with industry experts to teach you how this new world of finance is.
No, I can totally relate to what you said now about this CEO, because I myself, when I first moved to Hong Kong, I was working in traditional finance, in M&A, and then I transitioned towards the startup world, fintech world, and I experienced that myself, because when you're in traditional finance, you master certain things, but then you don't master certain other things. No? So that transition was, I'm not going to say hard, but at least weird for me as well. No? Not because I didn't like tech, which I did, but it's of course a completely different mindset. You rely much more on tech, then there is maybe like a lesser of a hierarchy. I mean, there are like so many changes that I understand that changes might be scary at first, but we need to change. You know, we need to keep adapting. It's part of our process as people, as humans, and also as employees. And I mean, it's been a great discussion so far, but we are going to run out of time soon. So before wrapping this up, I wanted to conclude by asking you personally, what advice would you give to anyone looking for jobs in fintech based on your experience on this report, especially to those willing to transition from traditional finance, but in general to anyone? So imagine that some of my listeners want to tap into fintech. What would you say to them?
Yes, I think there's one thing to say is that the world is moving fast. Technology is having a huge impact in the way that we live, the way that we're going to be working, the way we earn money, the way we learn things. The world is really moving fast. And I think COVID has accelerated this. You're seeing, with all the fintech unicorns that are every day, being at the stage of unicorn. Last year was a record year, for the fintech industry, with, large company are really growing very, very fast, and it will keep growing. I'm really, really bullish on the industry. But what about the people? So if you were looking, for to get into this industry that is really growing and looking for talent, because every people that I talk to and CEOs of fintech and the industry is looking for great talent, but what is missing is people that understand it. And so there's huge initiative, to learn. Please get yourself to jump into that boat. You haven't missed anything. It's just start your journey. Just start your journey and learn as much as you can and keep learning, because we're building this new world of finance, and this new world of finance is really, really fascinating. You are teaching on CBDCs, and it's really much, the future of payments. And today, for me, is that we used to transact in a way, with money, but today we are building digital money, and it's really, really, really different. And I would say that please, get yourself into this by learning, by discovering this. It's fascinating what's happening. It's changing a lot the way we interact, we work, we learn, etc. In the world. And so get to start immediately. It's fascinating. It's a huge opportunity that is happening. Get the skills. This is the one message. Is like I would say, learn about it. I keep sharing because people are scared. People are really, really scared about all this happening into with technology. Some people, they say, it's not for me. It's too tech. I leave it to the next generation. I would say is that internet is coming. Please don't learn to create the internet, use it. So I would say, AI is coming into your world. Not learn to do AI, but learn how to use it. Same as for you, you've done, the program of CBDC. The world of payments is really transforming, and it will transform more. Learn how is it used and try to do it. And that's why we encourage all our, learner, including ourselves, to learn about it, because we're just at the beginning. But if you don't learn, there's going to be a huge world that is shaping, which is the digital world, and you may just ending into the old world, but you need to understand what's happening into this digital world. It could be frightening, but actually, if you know how to do it or be inside this new world, I think you will see that a lot of things are being done already. I'm every day I'm learning. I keep learning, and it's very fascinating. So that would be my advice to everyone.
Thank you very much for sharing your advice, which is very valuable, and I fully agree with you. It's not just central bank digital currencies. It's like everything is changing. Cryptocurrencies, NFTs, the metaverse, virtual banking. So, I think that maybe the main conclusion that we could get from everything we've been saying is, first of all, I would encourage our listeners to check this job report if they want to learn more about the fintech industry, and especially if they want to learn more about what the fintech labor market looks like, but also to learn more, to do as many courses as possible, because it's not just about either cryptos or CBDCs, it's everything, Web 3.0, everything is changing, and as you said, now we all need to learn not just how to create those things, because maybe not all of us are like engineers or skilled enough to do it, but at least to learn how to use it, to know what those things actually are, no? Because, I mean, that's the future, and we cannot turn our backs to the future. We need to embrace it.
Exactly. You said it so well. I totally agree with you.
Well, this puts an end to our discussion. It's been great, Tram Anh, to host you today. We learned, I learned a lot from you, and I hope our listeners did as well. Once again, thank you very much for accepting my invitation and sharing these thoughts with me.
No, thanks a lot, Oriol, for inviting me for this session. And I would love to invite everyone, yes, to go and check our job report. We will keep it updated as we meet and we discover more and more unicorns, because 2022, my view is that there will be much more, so more jobs being created, and this is for the industry. So please, go to our website, CFT.education, and we'll keep, updating this job report for you, for every one of you. And if I may, but if you are interested in all the FinTech unicorn, we are also having another report where we keep updating on a monthly basis about how they're doing. And every time there's a news about one unicorn being acquired, IPO, or etc., we keep monitoring this on a monthly basis. And we have also a report if you are interested in knowing much more about what's happening, and keep yourself updated on a monthly basis. But no, thanks a lot, Oriol, for inviting me to share.
No, thank you. And well, as you heard Tram Anh say now, if you're interested in those reports, keep an eye open and feel free to check those out, which I'm sure are going to be very useful for all of you. And well, that puts an end to our show. Thank you very much, dear listeners, for listening to us. And please stay tuned for the next episodes. Bye.
Bye-bye.